From inside the White House.
When you step back in the Oval Office,
all right, we're not watching professional wrestling.
100th day in office. From the #1 issue, the economy.
People are worried, even some people who voted for you saying, I didn't sign up for this. So how do you answer those concerns?
Well, they did sign up for it, actually.
To immigration.
It is an undeniable fact that
and the Terry Moran.
Earlier today, I sat down with President Trump in the Oval Office
360p.
for an exclusive
Really?
interview on his 100th day of his second term. It was a great opportunity to ask him some wide-ranging questions about the issues that most concern so many Americans. We talked about the economy and his tariffs. We talked about immigration and those deportations. And you can see here the White House has put up some posters that they say show some of the violent criminals that have so far been deported.
I've seen some clips from this interview, and I think it might actually be... I don't know, man. You have to understand that, like, everything is already falling apart, right? Trump's approval rating is already falling apart. Though this interview was conducted not today, but it was at least released yesterday. The Q1 report is out, and the economy is shrinking. For the first time in a long time, the economy is shrinking. It's like everything is piling up. So we're in an environment now where there are two possibilities for Trump and for the Trump administration, which is double down and act as though approval ratings do not matter, which I think is what they're doing, or backpedal. And I think we're getting the doubling down. Here's a 720p quality video. Is it the full 40 minutes? Oh, it is. From ABC News, no less. This is just the ABC 7 version, which they re-uploaded in 360p. Okay.
White House. The first...
Some posters that they say show some of the violent criminals that have so far been deported. We talked about a lot more as well. The president's answers were provocative, at times combative, and always he was strong in his convictions about his policies. But before we get to the interview, we begin tonight with a look inside the Oval Office that Donald Trump has transformed.
Hello, everybody. How are you? This is the Oval Office. This is the Resolute desk, which is really something very spectacular. There's nothing quite like it. And they give you a choice of about 7 different desks, but this is the one I chose. Ronald Reagan had it, FDR had it, a few people had it, but I found it to be the most beautiful.
It is amazing.
This is an amazing space, and amazing maybe architecturally wonderful, but amazing for what it represents. It represents the U.S., and if properly used, a lot of good things can happen.
You have to understand that Donald Trump hasn't really had the opportunity to do an NTV Cribs bit in a long time. He used to do this all the time with his real estate properties, right? Back in the reality TV show days, like, oh, here's the penthouse. Look, it's got a gold toilet, you know? He's just trying to make the place feel like home.
I see Ronald Reagan over there.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan.
Right to your left.
Being in the Oval Office is very important. See Ronald Reagan here, and put him a little bit larger. It sort of seemed to fit very nicely. You have Democrats a little bit. You have
Franklin Roosevelt.
Franklin Roosevelt. So you look at that picture and people say, well, what's he doing up there? But look, he was a serious president, whether we like it or not. He was a 4-termer. And
it's funny that the thing that Trump idolized about FDR is the fact that he stayed in office for 4 terms. Also, worth noting, when you do social democracy correctly, even the fascists have to respect you because everyone understands that you're a bedrock of the country. That's true. History will always shit on the banal, dickless neoliberal. You know, people will turn on you in an instant. But if you build something that lasts, like social security, even the people later who hate you have to at least pretend to respect you. So yeah, same with MLK Jr., right? If you really win, and again, like arguments as to like to what extent the Civil Rights Act meaningfully fixed racism, right? But like, you know, if you really cement your legacy, even people who hate you have to pretend they like you.
You know, went through a war. You have Lincoln, you have Washington, but you look over here, that's Monroe, the Monroe Doctrine.
Why is he up there?
I think the Monroe Doctrine was pretty important. You know, that was his claim to fame. Over here you have the original of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, and of course you have the Declaration of Independence.
What does it mean to you?
Well, it means exactly what it says. It's a declaration. It's a declaration of unity and love and respect, and it means a lot, and it's something very special to our country.
Lincoln's portrait up there. I'm not familiar with that one, but I think when I'm looking at that famous line in the second inaugural, with malice foregone, with charity toward all.
Well, he was a great president. He went through a lot.
And the Oval Office is always changing between presidents. And
it changes,
says something.
It does.
What does this say about how you feel about the country and the office?
Well, I think it says I love the country. I mean, I'm putting pictures of presidents up that have never been up, pictures that weren't largely used, and in many cases, you know, great men, in this case men, but great men of great achievement.
And your every detail, it seems.
Yeah.
This is your office.
I'm a very detailed person. I'm a very clean person. I like cleanliness. I like to see
that is true. He's a clean
space
freak.
be treated properly. I've added a lot to the space in terms of beautification.
He has made the Oval Office look like absolute dog shit. Every frame now has this awful, gaudy, like fake gold, or like, well, it's the Oval Office. It's probably real gold. It's probably gold leaf. But he's added like gold bullshit to everything.
In terms of modernization, that's
a gallery of presidents.
It really is. It really is. So, and it's an honor to have you people with us.
Mr. President, thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much.
Here in the Oval Office, it's special. 100 days into your second term. So, what's the one thing, just one thing, that you think is the most significant thing you've done so far in these 100 days?
Well, I think maybe the border is the most significant, because our country was really going bad. They were allowing people to come in from prisons, as you know, and you've heard me say it, but you've heard a lot of people say it. Prisons, mental institutions, gang members, murderers. We had many murderers.
Hannibal Lecter, right?
11,888, they think. Some murdered more than one person. So you had murderers coming in, you had everybody coming in, and not just South America, from all over the world. They were emptying their prisons into...
Why is every fascist dictator a clean freak? I think there might actually be a legitimate psychological relationship between those things, like a desire for control in a chaotic world. I'm not really sure. That's a good question, but I feel like there actually are some historical parallels there. I don't really know, but he's been a clean freak for a long time. That's like a known thing about him. It's one of the weirdly human attributes to him, along with the fact that he does not drink because of what happened to his brother. Yeah, look, I understand. You've all seen a lot of Trump interviews before, but we're looking at a very distinct character to this one. It's going to take a little while, I assume. I've seen some clips from it, and Jesus Christ. I said early on in this presidency that one of the things that gave me hope about the future is the fact that the world is very complicated these days, and you can't break it the way it used to be possible to break it, you know? The reason North Korea was able to be turned into North Korea was because when that change happened, they didn't have a modern globalized economy. The reason Nazi Germany was able to rapidly industrialize, develop an enormous military force within their own country off of their own, mostly their own, labor and production, a consequence of a pre-globalized economy. But the world is different these days. Everything is much more complicated, you know? Like, literally, the economy used to be, and this isn't really an exaggeration, right? Like, how much gold did the lords have in the castle at the center of their fiefdom? And did everyone have enough grain in the grain silos? And were the spices coming in? And, like, were you tariffing the spices enough to get more gold from other empires so that your pile of gold was bigger than their pile of gold? You understand? It's just, it used to be a lot simpler. Nowadays, it's so damn complicated. I don't think it's possible to do what they're doing without breaking things. And now the things are getting broken. And as a consequence of that, they're going to start falling apart very rapidly. If you've taken a look at any economic headlines within the past few days, you've seen it. Port traffic drying up. Tariffs hit hard. Ships leaving China empty. Empty store shelves predicted within weeks. Everything's ramping up very quickly. Just today, Q1 report dropped. The economy has shrunk. It went down, I think 0.3% GDP growth. Negative 0.3%, I should say. So you either ignore reality or you acknowledge it and double back. You double back or double down. I think they're doubling down. I think that things are going to get much louder, much crazier, very, very, very quickly. We're going to take a look at the presidential cabinet meeting later, because it's also just as insane. Every member of Trump's cabinet has a MAGA hat laid out in front of them. Pam Bondi congratulates Trump on saving over 200 million American lives over the first 100 days. Things are going to get a lot crazier. And unfortunately, the average Republican viewer of their cabinet meetings, their Oval Office blurbs, their talks, whatever, completely insulated. Right now, a lot of the population has no idea what's happening or what's going to come
to our country, and now it's totally closed down. And you've seen just yesterday they announced 99.9%. Nobody thought that could happen. And it happened quickly, very quickly. And I think that's very significant. But we're doing other things that are very significant. Results.
Oh, there's one other thing I want to say, too, because I think it's important to view this in its appropriate context. Biden and Trump are very similar in that neither of them have much power as presidents. And the reason for this is because they're old. Being a president is very difficult. The amount of work you have to do to keep everyone in line and to keep track of everyone's priorities, to act in ways that reward the people who need to be rewarded and punish the people who need to be punished, it takes a lot of mental acuity. There's a reason why presidents age so quickly when they're in office. But Biden and Trump are both too mentally feeble, or were too mentally feeble, to do this job properly. Biden, I think, because he's genuinely too old. For Trump, it's a mixture of him being old and him being so stupid, he doesn't actually understand what the responsibilities of the office are. It's basically known that for Trump's first presidential term, he was a lame duck president. He wasn't actually the one making decisions. He had a team of Republican operatives near him, in the White House, in the cabinet, in Congress and Senate, who would do their best to interpret what he said and do the right version of it. If he had a stupid idea, they would tamp down on it. If he was insistent on a stupid idea, they would ignore him. They would ignore him until he forgot about it, and then they would just do what they wanted to do anyway. Trump effectively wasn't president in his first term. This time, in his second term, I still think he's not really president. The difference is that rather than a group of evil but somewhat competent Republican operatives doing their best to kind of keep things afloat in spite of him, now it's a group of extremely evil and not competent Republican operatives. That's the meaningful difference. Do you understand? I don't think Trump has any real power. I think the relationship between him and his cabinet is akin to a very, very wealthy great-grandpa who has a bunch of great-grandchildren sucking up to him so they make sure they're on the will when he dies. I think that's it. They know he is the fulcrum of popularity. He is the thing that drives, like, voter engagement. He is the reason they're all there, so they all have to do their best to suck up to him. And God, have they been sucking up to him. Holy shit, have they been sucking up to him. Do I have that clip here? In which of these tabs do I have that clip?
3,400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives. Kids are dying every day because they're taking this junk laced with something else. They don't know what they're taking. They think they're buying a Tylenol or an Adderall and a Xanax, and it's laced with fentanyl, and they're dropping dead, and no longer because of you, what you've done.
Thanks to you, President Trump, we've saved 2/3 of the population of America from buying fentanyl-laced Tylenol at the grocery store. Everyone wants to make sure they're on the will because all of these people are looking to carve up America as profitably as they can, and they want to be the ones to have the torch passed to them. I think, if anything, the cabinet might be getting crazier because J.D. Vance has turned out not to be the next guy. Trump confirmed it in an interview. Trump was asked if he thought J.D. Vance was his successor, and Trump said no, like an idiot. So now every one of the other, like, bastard children of the Trump administration is fighting over the opportunity to be the next person to carry the torch, or at least be, like, next to the person who next carries the torch. Sorry, I know I'm rambling a lot, but, like, in a very short span of time, we have gone from, like, regular political analysis to Game of Thrones tier feudal bullshit. He really said that when? It was about a month or two ago. He was asked relatively early on in the presidency if he saw J.D. Vance as a successor. He said, no, but I do like him, or something to that effect. Okay, we're going to continue now. I just want to frame this properly.
Take a little bit longer because it's one of those, it's complicated. It's many years of trading abuse. We've been abused by other countries for years and years. They laughed at us. They thought we were stupid people, and we're fixing it. And I think that's going to be very, very important. But
we have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, I would really say that the border is so important.
And we'll get there. Immigration, huge, and we're going to get there. But I want to start with the economy, the number one issue for so many people, for just about everybody. It's one of the main reasons that you're back in this office. And now we have this trade war with China that Moody's and other analysts say is going to cost American families thousands of more dollars per year. And there is a lot of concern out there. People are worried, even some people who voted for you saying, I didn't sign up for this. So how do you answer those?
Why is he so obsessed with the idea America's being taken advantage of? Because fascists are obsessed with the cult of victimhood. They don't triumphantly take credit for the actions they engage in to victimize other people. They're always reacting to. They never assign themselves any agency. If you take a look at Nazis online, for example, they'll see like a video of a Jewish guy being mean in public, and then they'll post like, and then for no reason at all of a sudden people voted for Hitler. They can never, they are always looking for an excuse to say that like circumstance and nature have driven them to be monsters rather than they chose to for like themselves because they're stupid and hateful, It's essentially that. The cult of victimhood, the Nazis did it as well. They all do it. They always do it. They're always whining.
Concerns?
Well, they did sign up for it, actually, and this is what I campaigned on. I said that we've been abused by other countries at levels that nobody's ever seen before. We were losing $3 to $5 billion a day on trade. We were losing $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion a year.
Yes, the Nazis did try to say Poland started the war.
They were taking advantage of us like they've never. I could have left it that way, and at some point there would have been an implosion like nobody's ever seen. But I said, no, we have to fix it. I've wanted to do this for many years. I had the best economy during my first term. We had a tremendous economy, tremendous success, and we did tremendous numbers of tariffs on. We took in a lot of money from tariffs. China in particular, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. We had no inflation, as you know. We had an incredible economy. We're given credit for a great economy. But I said, we have to fix this. Otherwise, it's just not self-sustaining.
One of the things you ran on was you said you'd bring prices down on day one, and that it would happen fast, and that it would happen fast.
I have.
Most economists will tell you that tariffs will raise prices. So don't your tariffs cut against that promise you made to bring prices down?
No, because I had massive tariffs on China, if you remember, in my first term, and we had essentially no inflation, like around 1% inflation, which is like a perfect number. And then when Biden took over, it went through the roof. It went to probably the worst inflation we've ever had. I mean, we had an inflation nightmare.
There was, of course, plenty of inflation and economic hardship under Trump, especially for farmers. That being said, people are going to get hit by the tariffs in ways I don't think a lot of people understand how tariffs work. The goods are tariffed when they enter the United States, not when you buy them. Like, if you're seeing Temu pricing stuff or whatever higher now, they're still getting hit with the tariffs for stuff they shipped out on cargo ships 2 weeks ago because it arrived after the tariffs. Like, even if before you bought it, after the tariffs are applied. Also, all the Americans who think they can get around tariffs by buying directly from Chinese manufacturers, you pay the tariffs. You pay those tariffs. If you're the one importing the good from the manufacturer, they might sell it to you for $20, but when it gets to a port of entry in the United States and it's going to get sent to you, you're the listed recipient, you're the importer. You pay the tariff. The government will go after you. DHL stopped shipping orders under 800 so people can't do the loophole. Yeah, the de minimis exception. They got rid of it with a bit of a buffer. But that shit's gone, man.
Now, if you look at what's happening now, we're only there for 100 days, as you say. And in 100 days, we took over. We had bad inflation for 4 years, for 2 years of, especially 2 years of his administration. I would say record-setting like we've never seen. They say 48 years, the worst in 48 years. I say it was much worse than that. Yeah. Right. So now if you look at what's happened, energy is down. Gasoline hit $1.98 in a few states during the last couple of days.
Oh, yeah.
It was $3.50.
That's me when I don't know how the economy works. Guys, the gas prices are plummeting. Crude oil per barrel right now, it's like $5. Everything's gonna be good. Everything's going all right. Everything going to be all right. We've been explaining this shit to people since January 2024 and they don't fucking listen. Yep, that's why we have to suffer. That's why our country has to burn in holy fire. Yep. Yes, sir. That's why we have to all suffer.
And $4 and $4.50, but gasoline is way down. When I took over, you remember the big thing with eggs. They hit me the first week, eggs, like it was my fault. I said, I didn't cause this problem. This problem was caused by Biden. What's the problem with eggs? And they said, they've doubled. And well, eggs are down 87% since I got involved.
Eggs are actually free now.
There were plenty of eggs for Easter, which we just went through. There were plenty of eggs for Easter. They were saying you won't have enough eggs for Easter. My secretary did a fantastic job on eggs. Groceries are down. Everything's down. Okay. Interest rates are the same. Interest rates should be down, but we have a Federal Reserve that wants to be stubborn. They want to be cute.
We'll get to that.
Oh, holy shit. I didn't realize how much oil had actually gone down. Oh, my God. I didn't realize. Holy shit. Was that this just right here? I assume that's when the Q1 report came out. Ooh. Yep. Oh, man, we're falling off another cliff, man. Can you hear the sound of Putin's tears? Yeah, hey, listen, okay, oil prices going down is good for Ukraine, at least. So there's that. Yeesh. Goldman is predicting $40 a barrel. $40?! Does Goldman have eyes on any, like, meteors hurtling towards the planet? Perchance? Possibly? Jesus Christ. Clunk. Clunk. So much for that plan to build drill, baby, drill. I mean, they can if they want to drive the cost down even lower. Russia's largest oil company is selling off all its assets right now. It's not doing well. I mean, I guess that's cool. Well.
You said something a couple weeks ago that struck me. You said concerning the tariffs, which economists say are going to raise prices, you said, quote, hang tough. Yeah. It won't be easy. You said that to the American people. Is that what Americans should expect, some hard times?
I've said that during my campaign. Look, we won a campaign by a lot. We won all 7 swing states. We won the popular vote by a lot. You know, we had a tremendous campaign. I said all of these things during my campaign. I said, you're going to have a transition period. We've been ripped off by every country all over the world. They're laughing at us. They thought we were stupid people, and we were. And I said, that's not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen.
Hard times are ahead?
I don't think so. I think great times are ahead. Look, since I came in, gasoline is down, groceries are down, egg prices are down, many things are down, just about everything. You know, you don't have the drop in fuel and energy.
Hold on 1 second. We're going to talk more about this as we get to the cabinet. But in terms of difficult times being ahead, hold on, who just linked it to me? The Trump administration is unironically embracing severe degrowth.
And I told you before, they're having tremendous difficulty because their factories are not doing business. They made $1 trillion with Biden, $1 trillion, even $1.1 trillion with Biden selling us stuff. Much of it we don't need. You know, somebody said, oh, the shelves are going to be open. Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30, you know? And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. But
Jesus. Not like 20 to 15 or something, 30 to 2, plus they'll cost more. Good Lord. We're gonna die, man, yeah. Jesus Christ. But what's the problem with the decrease in crude oil prices? Because the price of crude oil... So, okay. It used to be that you could find oil by sticking your dick in the ground, popping a vein, and then it pours out. Sweet Texas crude, okay? Nowadays, you got to get a little fancy with it. You got to get a little tricky with it to get the oil out. It gets more expensive to get the oil out. Oil basically fuels the world, so it's necessary to get it out basically no matter what. But if oil gets so cheap that it's no longer profitable to sell the oil at the cost it takes to obtain it, that's an issue. For example, offshore drilling and fracking, it's more expensive to get oil that way per barrel than it would be just regular old-fashioned 1912 oil wells. The reason the price of oil is falling is because the demand for oil is falling. The demand for oil is falling because people are predicting economic tough times ahead. Oil gets more expensive when it's in higher demand, and it's in higher demand when people expect more economic activity. What we're seeing by multiple plunges in the value of oil is people predicting enormous economic hardship. That's why oil prices went down so much during COVID, because for a while the ships just weren't running, you know?
Energy and oil like we did. I took it from maybe $3.20, maybe more than that, down into a much lower number. When you have that kind of a drop, you're not going to have inflation.
Not now, but it's the tariffs, right? We still have 145% tariffs on China. Your Treasury Secretary said we basically have an embargo on China.
Look, you're trying to say something's going to happen, Terry.
No, okay, well,
nothing's going to happen.
You know business.
Break even on new wells in West Texas is something like 63 a barrel. Really? That high? Huh. For existing wells, it's like 45 a barrel? Gotcha. That's crazy. Yeah, Saudi Arabia is incentivized to continue producing oil, to continue driving the prices lower, and the reason they want to do that is because they want to destroy us. OPEC has been looking for an opportunity to gut us because America produces a lot of oil. They've been looking for an opportunity to punish us for that for a while. So, you know, good, please destroy us. I'd be happier with Canada destroying us or China destroying us than Saudi Arabia, but, you know, if you all want to Voltron up and take us down.
I want to ask you.
I do know business.
Yes, so 145% tariffs on China, and that is basically an embargo.
They deserve it.
It'll raise prices on everything from electronics to clothing to building houses.
You don't know that. You don't know whether or not China's going to eat it.
That's mathematics.
China probably will eat those tariffs, but at 145, they basically...
This is what I mean. Like, this is magical thinking. It's possible he actually believes this, and that people are actually telling him this directly. Like, it's possible his advisors are telling him that Chinese companies are going to eat 150% tariffs for no reason. I don't know why they would do that. But my guess is that he's being told this by his administration. Genuinely, I don't think he's all that present mentally.
Can't do much business with the United States. And they were making from us $1 trillion a year. They were ripping us off like nobody's ever ripped us off. And by the way, we have other countries that were just as bad. If you look at the European Union, it was terrible what they've done to us. Every country, almost every country in the world was ripping us off. They're not doing that anymore.
I want you to think about the boom that this country has had in small businesses. Mom and pop Etsy stores, small businesses that became big businesses.
They haven't had a boom because of inflation.
Well,
the boom was inflationary boom. The people were wiped out with inflation. I mean, you read the news, you do the business
now
stuff, I assume.
Now, a lot of them built those businesses on the trading model.
Yeah, and they're going to make more money
They
now.
sourced their products overseas, and now they're looking at an extinction event.
I've been here.
It's a disaster for them.
I've been here for 3 months. I've taken a trade deficit down to a number that's very, very starting to get really good. I just got here. We had a country that it was not sustainable. What Biden did to this country, between the open borders where criminals poured into our country, between every country in the world ripping us off on trade, it was not sustainable.
So your message to those small businesses who are saying we can't live a month, 2 months with these tariffs. Apple got a big deal. Is there something for them?
No, not only Apple. We've got $7 to $8 trillion being invested in our country in 2 months. Biden didn't have that over a year. I mean, if you look at Biden, nobody was really investing in this country. Everybody was ripping off our country.
He really just doesn't understand what a trade deficit is, does he? No, it doesn't seem he does. And again, like, we're in an environment... You know, Mike Johnson a few days ago was bragging about censoring pro-Democrat campaign ads that were running in swing states. He said we shut those down. We're not in a free media environment anymore. We're at best like on the sort of objective scale of mixed democracy, but in all likelihood, all the systems are kind of gone now. So I don't know how much this fella thinks he can actually criticize Trump directly without him taking, you know, like him getting ABC fucking delisted from the list of licensed news networks or whatever. We have to suffer, man. We really do. Like the ultimate cause of this, like past everything else, is that nobody's ashamed to be stupid anymore. People are proudly stupid, and people will ignore reality as much as they want as long as it verifies their emotional priors, you know? And that comes from the voter base. And they've been cultivated to be like that by corporate media. I recognize that. But this needs to be like a cleansing fire that sweeps across the entire country. And we need a level of citizen participation, the likes of which we've never had in this country, not since World War II, at the very least. You know, I still think a lot of left-leaning people in this country are operating on the assumption that eventually this is going to blow over. And I think it's absolutely delusional. It only takes a small committed group of people in a country, 10% of the population being politically active, to change the fates of everyone in that country forever. Not even 10%. Look at the Jan 6 people. That was not 10%. That was like a tiny, 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 tiny fraction of a percent. And they failed, but what if there were 10 times as many? You know? Things could have ended earlier. You know what I'm saying? What about the Tea Party? But it seems like every time you have that small dedicated group of people, they're on the other side. Evil, evil people. We need to start being militant, you know? We need to be active. The behaviors, mannerisms, the beliefs that led to this can't be fixed by ousting Trump or even the current head of the Republican Party, right? Like all of the, you know, you can arrest them for the crimes they've committed, the objective crimes they've committed. You can have them arrested and you can try them or whatever. But it doesn't fix the underlying issues. And I still think that a lot of liberals would sort of delusionally reestablish the economic and social patterns that led to this being a problem in the first place. We're dealing with like very basic fundamentals here. I guess what I'm saying is that be not angry at Trump for he knows not what he does, okay? That's not what you need to be focusing on here. Trump is genuinely a mentally deficient toddler who is being propped up by a cabal around him, you know? What I take from this mostly is the fact that people look at him and think this is agreeable.
Apple's putting up $500 billion, but that's only one of many companies. Companies are flooding into our country right now.
So your answer to the concern about the tariffs is everything's going to be hunky-dory?
Everything's going to be just fine. It wouldn't have been if I didn't do this. I had a choice. I could leave it, have a nice, easy time, but I think ultimately you would have had an implosion. Our country had inflation that was worse than they've ever had it before. You don't mention that. Why don't you mention that? We had the worst inflation probably in the history of our country. People say 48 years. Probably in the history of our country, we had the worst inflation. And people were dying over the inflation. You know that. Now the grocery prices are coming down. The energy prices are coming down. Gasoline's coming down. It's all heading in the right direction.
Okay, let's move on to immigration.
Coming up.
It is an undeniable fact that
the first 100.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on to immigration. And as you said, it is an undeniable fact that illegal crossings at the southern border have plummeted, a staggering decline. But there are questions about your methods. And so I want to ask
about my message?
Methods. About your methods. How you're accomplishing
they seem to work.
Do you acknowledge that under our law, every single person who gets deported gets a hearing first to make their case?
Well, are we talking about people that are citizens of our country or not?
No, you're not deporting citizens at this point.
Well, let me ask you, did they get hearings when Biden...
There have been citizens deported, children of undocumented illegals, but citizens nonetheless.
Allowed 21 million, because I think the number is 20 million people to flow into our country. You had 21 million people that came into our country through a stupid open border, and they were prisoners, and they were people that you don't want in many cases in our country, right? They came from all over the world. They came from the Congo. They came from South. They came from all over the world. We're talking about some of the roughest countries in the world they had here, including terrorists, by the way. Now,
but did we
give them a hearing when they came in?
Well, the law requires that every single person who is going to be deported gets a hearing first.
Well,
you acknowledge that?
I'll have to ask the lawyers about that. All I can say is this: if you're going to have
that, to me, this is exactly what I mean. This is the tell. He's just being told what is or isn't okay. He's not the one making these decisions. He's given this answer multiple times. Listen, he is a strong man who is okay with lying. If he actually understood what was happening and what the stakes were, he would just lie here. He wouldn't say, I'll ask the lawyers. He doesn't benefit politically from this deference to a group of invisible technocrats to explain to him what the answer is. How often does Trump do that, by the way? How often does Trump go, oh, I don't have an answer to that. I'll need to talk to experts? What? I mean, not that often. Sometimes on like little topics. Certainly not on like the prime subject of his entire presidency. More often than his first term? He does do it more often now than in his first term, but I guess what I'm saying is that, like, it is more characteristic of him to simply say, of course what we're doing is legal. What, are you stupid? I think it's a very clear indicator. He genuinely doesn't know what he's doing is illegal. He's being told that it's legal because everyone working around Trump knows that he is stupid and that he can't keep secrets. So they're worried that if they tell Trump, hey, listen, what we're doing is violating constitutional law, but listen, it's okay. Just pretend it's okay. We're going to make it happen. They're worried that he's going to say it. That he in this interview would go, they tell me it's violating constitutional law. My lawyers tell me, but I tell them, no, I don't think so. They know he would do that because of course he would do that. So they just don't tell him.
21 million people, and if we have to get a lot of them out because they're criminals, we're going to have to act fast. We can't. Do you think we can give 21 million trials? Let's say each trial takes 2 weeks. Is that what you want us to do?
The law is the law, sir. The law is the law.
No, the law doesn't say anything about trials.
No, not trials.
I'm sorry. I have no comment on that one. I actually didn't hear that in the little clips that I saw beforehand. That's a primo. That's good. That's really good. That's an all-timer. That shit like that is why they don't tell him what he's doing is breaking the law. Right there. Perfect example. That right there is exactly why they don't tell him.
Hearings.
These people came in, they're not citizens. They came in illegally. They came into our country illegally. We have to get them out.
There's a legal process for that.
I can't, sure, and we follow the legal process. I can't have a trial, a major trial for every person that came in illegally. We have thousands of murderers that came in. They're going to murder people. They already have murdered people in our country. Right, so we have to get them out, and we have to get them out fast.
Really bad guys, but in our country, even bad guys get due process, right?
If people come into our country illegally, there's a different standard. These are illegal. They came.
There isn't. I mean, I know you all know that, but just to be clear, in case anyone isn't aware of like American law, there isn't. The constitutional rights that are afforded to people with regard to due process are afforded to all within the jurisdiction of the United States, not citizens. The document's pretty clear on that. It's very clear on that. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed it. There's no question.
Illegally.
But they get due process.
Well, they get a process where we have to get them out. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Venezuelans.
They get whatever my lawyers say.
Right. All right, let's talk about...
See? I have never heard him talk about this so much. Every time the immigration stuff comes up, my lawyers, my lawyers, my lawyers. You control the Attorney General. What do you mean? My lawyers. Why do you... My lawyers? It's just weird. It's Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is probably one of the big power brokers behind Trump. Yeah. He's very intelligent. He's very evil. Howard Lutnick doesn't seem like he... I don't know. He just seems like he wants to sell figurines. Scott Bessent doesn't look like he wants to be there. RFK Jr. is mentally subnormal. Tulsi Gabbard probably isn't held in high enough esteem within the group as a Russian agent to like really have a chance at inheriting that kind of role. It seems like Stephen Miller is one of the only people around Trump who has both the intelligence, wherewithal, and the connections to be one of the major players in influencing him. Obviously, one of them would be a Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, yeah, it's his new Bannon. Yeah, little Marco. Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer might actually be, which is crazy. Also, I don't know, Carolyn Levitt. She's clearly not stupid. She is very on the spot with like her contempt for the United States and everyone who lives within it. She's very good about being evil. Like, she does not come across as she's just, like, blundering through it or whatever. Leavitt is very dangerous. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, Leavitt, Rubio, maybe Laura Loomer, definitely Stephen Miller. To an extent, J.D. Vance, possibly. Pam Bondi as well? I wonder. I don't know. Has Pam Bondi made any real plays since the beginning of the administration, or has she just been, like, Trump's lapdog? She hasn't done anything that's impressed me since, and she's never come across as a particularly intelligent person to me. Certainly not as much so as, like, Carolyn Leavitt. I don't know. No.
About the Venezuelans. You deported more than 200 Venezuelans to that prison in El Salvador. You say they're violent, they're gang members, they're terrorists. Many of them don't have a criminal record at all.
Well,
but
I'm not so sure about that if you take a look.
I want to read you something.
Excuse me, when you look at those people, they were violent people. They were violent people.
But many of them don't have a criminal record at this point.
I want to read you something.
Oh, it's based on what their lawyers have said. Okay. Joe Rogan said this. Joe Rogan, one of the leading podcasters, Trump supporter, about the deportation of Venezuelans.
This is how you cut through. This is how you get to Trump. You have to be like, okay, listen, every expert on earth and every lawyer and everyone everywhere says this. But also, Joe Rogan, the gorilla guy, he also said this.
Said, quote, rounding up gang members and shipping them to El Salvador with no due process, he said it was dangerous, and added, quote, we got to be careful that we don't become monsters while we're fighting monsters. Is Joe Rogan right?
Oh, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, we want to be careful, and we are careful. We're doing something that has to be done. We have a country that's very sick. Joe Biden, and it's not him because I don't even think he knew what the hell was happening, but the people around him are vicious people, and what they've done to the country is unbelievable. They've allowed 21 million people to pour into our country. Many of these people...
So, okay, like, this is the reason why talking to Trump directly isn't really that valuable, because he cycles, right? It's the weave. It is interesting, though, how much he softens in his rhetoric when he knows that a position is being taken by someone who's in his pocket, right? Like Joe Rogan. Because now he can't frame it as, well, they're rhinos, you know, they hate America, they're crazy leftists, etc., etc. It's all just loyalty to him.
Criminals. They've allowed you mentioned Venezuela, the jails of Venezuela to be emptied into the United States. Do you know Venezuela crime is way down? Way, way down. You know why? Because their criminals are now living happily in the United States of America, and we're getting them out. And I was elected to get them out, and we're getting them out.
Under the law.
And we're getting them out fast, and we're getting them out legally. Now, in some cases, we have judges. In some cases, they're radical left judges. What happened the other day where a judge was protecting a criminal was horrible. And I think she's got big problems, frankly. And there are a couple of them like that.
I want to talk about one
Wait
man.
a minute.
Yep.
We have to be treated fairly by judges. And we're not being treated fairly by all judges.
Oh, that's a subject.
Did you just say, did I miss that too? I'm sorry, I also went in the weave for a second there.
Protecting a criminal was horrible. And I think she's got big problems, frankly. And there are a couple of them like that.
I want to talk about one man.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
We have to be treated fairly by judges. And we're not
I didn't go back far enough.
them out legally, and we're getting
Under
them out,
the law.
and we're getting them out fast, and we're getting them out legally.
He definitely said illegally, but it was clearly a slip.
Now, in some cases, we have judges. In some cases, they're radical left judges. What happened the other day where a judge was protecting a criminal was horrible. And I think she's got big problems, frankly. And there are a couple of them like that.
I want to talk about one
Wait
man.
a minute.
Yep.
We have to be treated fairly by judges, and we're not being treated fairly by all judges.
Oh, that's a subject. So you're saying that you don't like some of the rulings, some of the court orders.
I think the rule.
It's important to understand that the grievance culture, victim mentality bullshit that Trump postures with here is also the mentality of every single individual Trump supporter. None of them are happy. None of them are triumphant over their victories. None of them are looking to make the world a better place. It's all grievance politics all the time. It's all, my only goal in life is to make your life worse, but it's your fault and you did this to me. And the reason you did this to me is because you hate me. And the way you did this to me is by, like, being a feminist or something. I don't know. It is a top-down psychological problem, you know. I think that doesn't Zizek talk about this? Is this like a Lacanian thing that I haven't read up enough on? The idea like people need to synthesize a psychopolitical analysis more often, or psychological political analysis more often, you know? It's important for people, because like the idea that these positions are derivative from any kind of political theory or even material incentive is simply not true. There are perceived material incentives, but at the end of the day, we're effectively dealing with mass psychosis, right?
Will be overturned, yeah.
Let me ask you about one man and one court order. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's the Salvadoran man who crossed into this country illegally, but who is under a protective order that he not be sent back to El Salvador. Your government sent him back to El Salvador and acknowledged in court that was a mistake. And now the Supreme Court has upheld an order that you must return him to facilitate his return to the United States. What are you doing to comply?
Well, the lawyer that said it was a mistake was here a long time, was not appointed by us, should not have said that, and just so you understand, the person that you're talking about, you know, you're making this person sound, this is a MS-13 gang member, a tough cookie.
There are actual dictators in countries far less wealthy and developed than ours that speak more subtly when they're challenging the judiciary than this. I'm pretty sure that if you like look at Viktor Orban's rise in Hungary, like there are times when he's been way more subtle in how he shouldn't have said that. Oh, a lawyer ruled against your like unconstitutional behavior. That he wasn't our guy and he shouldn't have said that. Like just straight up mob boss Sopranos talk, you know?
Been in lots of skirmishes, beat the hell out of his wife, and the wife was petrified to even talk about him, okay? This is not an innocent, wonderful gentleman from Maryland.
I'm not saying he's a good guy. It's about the rule of law. The order from the Supreme Court stands, sir.
He came into our country illegally.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
But the court has ordered you to facilitate.
There's an admission right there that he could do it. The position from the Trump administration has been that, oh, well, it doesn't matter because we can't do it. And here's Trump admitting, yeah, we can do it. You know, we just don't want
to.
I'm not the one making this decision. We have lawyers that don't want to do this.
But the buck stops in this office.
No. I follow the law. You want me to follow the law? If I were the president that just wanted to do anything, I'd probably keep him right where he is.
Supreme Court says what the law is.
Listen, I was elected to take care of a problem. It was a unforced error that was made by a very incompetent man, a man that turned out to be incompetent, that you always said was wonderful, great genius, right? And now you find out, all of the media now, they're saying what a mistake they made. A man who was grossly incompetent allowed us to have open borders where millions of people flowed in. I campaigned on that issue. I wouldn't say it was my number one issue, but it was pretty close.
Right up there.
He literally switches what he says every other sentence. Yeah. Again, it should always be understood as like, and this is why I've always despised when Democrats do that really politically damaging thing where they argue that Trump is like a distinctly evil force within an otherwise captured Republican Party. You have to understand, man, Trump might be one of the least evil people in the Republican Party because he's one of the only ones so mentally compromised that he doesn't understand what he's doing. He was like that in his first term, too. The only thing that's been keeping the cap on the Republicans for all this time, for the past decade, is the fact that they thought they couldn't get away with doing what they wanted to do. Trump just doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't have the temperance to keep himself from acting in that way. But now that he's just popped the lid off anyway, all of them are taking advantage of it. All of them are like this, you know? Honestly, I kind of wish Trump was evil and smart, but he's not. Yeah, we want a narrative where Trump is the big bad, and when he's defeated, things will get better. But he's not. He's just not. He's not. He's genuinely, like, in terms of his political instincts and his willingness to, you know, his direction to lead the country, indistinguishable from just a regular Republican at this point. A regular Republican might actually be a little bit smarter and more discerning with the advice that they take, if anything, because Trump is, again, pretty mentally compromised, and he's also a huge egomaniac, so he's really susceptible to flattery. Any flattery will win him over. He always has been that way. You get me, don't you? Democrats are setting us up for a lifetime of this. Over and over and over again, on and off, you know? Trump goes, oh, well, somebody else will do the exact same thing. You've got like 100 million people in this country who are susceptible to this kind of rhetoric. We're dealing with like an underlying issue here. People think it's exceptional that Trump is an authoritarian. I've got bad news for you guys. The average person is. Authoritarianism is the norm. Democracy is the aberration. Authoritarianism was more or less how humans have organized themselves civilizationally for all of human history, with few exceptions, up until the past century and a half. And it's only been a wide-based distribution of labor and educational rights that's led that change, by the way. That wasn't because everyone's brains suddenly changed. That's because, in a materialist sense, the way we relate to our labor, the fact that people need to do more complex forms of labor in order to produce, to make themselves economically viable, requires general education. General education increases people's standards and expectations of living. It's kind of like a downstream effect. There are relationships between the way in which capitalism has predominated and the growth of democracy as a dominant form of government. But things are shifting backwards. You can say it's because of AI. You can say it's because of the service economy. You can say it's because of the fact that maybe we kind of overcorrected. The average person does not need to be that smart to do a job, folks. Basic literacy, some mathematical skills, social skills, most of these you could pick up grades 1 through 6. Whether it's material, whether it's social, we're backsliding. And if you put an average person in the Oval Office, not Trump, not even a Republican, just the average person, and you gave them a bunch of yes men, they'd be an authoritarian too. 9 times out of 10, they'd be an authoritarian too. They would, out of inertia, gravitate at first to democratic norms, until time and time again it turned out democracy is complicated and, in America's case, extremely inefficient and obstructionist. And they would default over and over to what he's doing. Sorry, I'm framing this as like a response to Democrats, but it's not really. I'm just talking, I suppose. But I think it's important to understand these things. The scope of the problem that we're dealing with.
I campaigned on that issue. I've done an amazing job. I have closed borders. He said you couldn't do it. You wouldn't be able to do it. It would never happen. Well, it happened, and it happened very quickly. Wait a minute. When we have criminals, murderers, criminals in this country, we have to get them out, and we're doing it. By law. And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
So this is one of the big ones. This one is maybe the most what are we doing here bit to the entire interview. So a little while ago, and this caught me up as well because I was confused by it, Donald Trump held up a photo of the knuckles of Kilmar Abrego Garcia that news claimed was photoshopped. Now, because I'm stupid and I still vainly hold on to the belief that we live in a world that makes sense, I assumed that when they said this was photoshopped, they meant the tattoos on Abrego Garcia's fingers here, that they were added in post, and that the MS-13 right here was meant to indicate what those symbols really represented. Marijuana leaf, smiley face, cross, and skull. Obviously, that means MS-13, of course. It's genius. It could be literally anyone's hand. This is Kilmar Abrego Garcia's hand. Those are his tattoos. The Photoshop in question is the text added over it. Now, I assumed, looking at this photo, that any human being capable of reading the text MS-13 would understand what a real tattoo is and what the characters superimposed over it to describe meaning are. Donald Trump doesn't. Donald Trump believes that MS-13 were tattooed on his knuckles. I don't know what to say about this. It's cognitive decline that surpasses anything Biden ever did. Biden was sleepy. He is Sleepy Joe. This is true. But when he was present in a conversation, his mind worked a lot better than this. Look at this again.
And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
he thinks it's actually MS-13. Like, he thinks that text is real.
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
Notice how he's trying to move on past this point. Trump is actually confused. In Trump's mind, MS 1 and 3 are tattooed on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's knuckles. And he's confused why this radical left reporter is questioning this obvious material fact. Guys, I don't know. I don't think it can go on like this. I'm not kidding. This is the kind of shit that people refer to in history books thousands of years later. These are tidbits and anecdotes that get thought of in the future as like references to why civilizations collapse. I can't go on, boss. I can't do this no more. I think Trump's just lying. No, 0% chance. He believes it. Look at how he reacts here. The interviewer is trying to move on from a point in which Trump is obviously provably wrong. He's persisting. He thinks it's real.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS1.
Don't do that. See? Don't do that.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshop. So let me
That was Photoshop. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
I don't think we can go on like this. It really does reframe so much of Trump's character and the way he responds to the people around him. When Trump plays up the victim complex, it's real. When Trump says the left media is lying about him by posting stuff that he did, he's telling the truth, or at least he thinks he is. He's being sincere. It's possible that he's always been sincere. This on its own is enough to, like, every moment where we assumed, well, he has to be lying about that at least. I don't know anymore. I genuinely don't. It's possible that he's always been more compromised than we could even begin to guess at. He's not talking about the letters and numbers. He's talking about the tattoos themselves. He explicitly said, you need to listen, man. He literally explicitly said he had MS-13 tattooed in his hand. He said it as explicitly as I did. He's talking about the letters and numbers.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the...
Trust me, he's telling the truth. If he was lying, do you really think he'd be acting like this?
Picture. We'll
and you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine.
No,
Terry,
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be.
Do anyone in chat want to continue to... This is so much worse than if he was actually lying. Yeah, it really is. This man has the nuclear codes. It's actually genuinely horrifying. This is so much worse.
Not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but
they're in your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look.
It's you do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say yes?
I think that... I don't know if Trump's ever told a knowing lie in his life. I don't know. Genuinely. No liar would act like this. He thinks he's caught the radical left interview in an obvious falsehood. The fact that he's so confident about pursuing it, in spite of how provably wrong he is proof that he thinks of his interactions in general this way. That every time somebody corrects him on something, they're obviously wrong. Like, it's not a bit. None of it's ever been a bit. I don't know of any other world leader that's this mentally cooked. I don't know of any American president that's been this cooked. This is worse than Reagan, easily. Reagan's dementia, exacerbated in his second term. It's far worse than Biden. I can't think of any other president that ever did anything like this. I can't think of any world leader. I mean, if you go back far enough, some water-brained king, maybe, from 500 years ago. This not being plastered everywhere in every news article. Yeah, and as an example of like the extent to which we're captured in a media perspective, this should be, clips like this should be on every news website. This right here, like the title should be like, he needs to be overthrown. Like that, like praying for a Pentagon coup. Like it's beyond, like this is end of civilization material. This is end of days. In the future, when people look back at this, they will judge us for not having done anything. Invoke the 25th. Well, his cabinet's not going to do it. This Congress isn't going to do it. It's a top-down problem. Look at the depravity of capital, man. Look at what the oligarchs will allow to happen if it marginally boosts their profits. Elon and Jeff Bezos and the like, Sam Altman, whatever, they were all obviously already extremely wealthy. And it wasn't enough for them.
He does, and, go on to something else.
It's contested. Ukraine.
Coming up, the Russia-Ukraine war.
Don't
You
forget,
think he wants
this
peace?
is
You think Vladimir Putin wants peace?
And that historic meeting. President Trump, the first 100 days continues.
I want to turn, I was just in Rome, and to that moving photograph of you and President Zelensky sitting in St. Peter's Basilica talking peace. It went around the world.
Sure.
Take us into that moment.
Well, look, the Ukraine is a very serious, very tough situation. And this is Biden's war. This is not my war, but I want to see if I can solve it, because probably close to 5,000 young soldiers a week are being killed, Russian and Ukrainian.
Your political system sucks ass. You have a huge amount of power concentrated in one person. Oh, Trump himself has almost no power. The problem is that all three branches of government are controlled by the same oligarchs. All of this comes down to money. In a country where the population wasn't mentally cooked by an entire lifetime of corporate propaganda, this would, like, I mean, it would be like Euromaidan times 10. Certainly, Trump represents a greater threat to America than Yanukovych ever did to Ukraine. It's difficult to imagine any world leader being more potentially dangerous to their country than what Trump and his administration represents to America and the world. But we don't have Euromaidan times 1, let alone times 10. Why? Because at the end of the day, all of this is being dictated to us in a very, very, very slim margin of the population, right? Like the mode of social control has narrowed to the point where through the internet and the monopolization of news media, essentially like 10 people control everything in terms of like how you get your political news. And none of them are willing to go up against Trump. Don't forget the police state. I am forgetting the police state because you can still protest in this country without getting arrested, unless you're Palestinian or an immigrant or whatever. I'm talking about the information people are exposed to. It's not just a right versus left thing, because the average Democrat also isn't seeing this news, this clip, this interview, you know? It's just kind of crazy to me that back in the days when the printing press was the best way of distributing information, fake news about what Marie Antoinette said was enough to rile up an entire peasant population of barely literate cow shit farmers. They just printed it on paper and ran around villages distributing it. Nowadays, we have all the information in the world, and of 330 million people, I'd be willing to bet at most 5% of the population, the voting population, will ever see this. Maybe not even that. Maybe 10% in total will see clips or discussion related to it.
We also spend a tremendous amount of money in Ukraine, and Europe should be spending much more than us. They're not. They're spending much less. It's been badly handled by the Biden administration. It's been badly handled all the way around, the way around.
That moment.
The moment was a moment of solace, in a sense, because tremendous numbers of people are dying. A lot of his people are dying. They're being killed. And I feel very badly about it. I feel very badly about it. That's a war that would have never happened if I were president. And it didn't happen for 4 years. It was never even a thought of it happening.
It does feel like something's happening. After that meeting with Zelensky in St. Peters, you posted this on social media. There was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas and cities and towns over the last few days. It makes me think that maybe...
Well, that was part of my post, but you're right. That was a part of a post.
And it says, it makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. He's just tapping me along.
Yeah, that's possible. Sure.
He might be...
He could be tapping me along a little bit. I would say that he would like to stop the war. I think that if it weren't for me, I think he'd want to take over the whole country, personally. I always felt. So when I left, there wasn't even a chance that this would happen. When Biden got involved, I won't say whether or not he handled it properly, but obviously it wasn't good because the war started. Putin went in, the war started. I believe that Putin wanted to get all of Ukraine once he went in. And I think part of the reason he went in, he saw what happened in Afghanistan, how incompetently Milley and all these guys handled that. It was one of the greatest embarrassments of our lifetimes, but maybe in the history of our country. Okay. So Putin went in. I think Putin wanted all of Ukraine. Right. I think if I didn't win the election, he would have gotten all of Ukraine. I think he would have taken all of Ukraine. I think his first choice, never with me, he would have never gone in. With this group of losers, he went in, he saw what happened in Afghanistan. He said, wow, this is my chance. Because it was always the apple of his eye. I talked to him. Ukraine was the apple of his eye. I think he wanted the whole country.
You've said for months.
Because of me, I do believe that he's willing to stop the fighting. Don't forget,
you think he wants peace? You think Vladimir Putin wants peace?
I think he does, yes. I think he does. I think
even with the raining missiles
I think he really, his dream was to take over the whole country. I think
another indication of how much of his decision-making is affected by his compromised psyche, which is that he is not acting sane in any direction. He's not acting coherently pro or anti-Russia. He was genuinely upset with Vladimir Putin for betraying Trump and continuing to attack Ukraine, even though it's made Trump look bad. But he's still defending Putin? It doesn't really make sense, honestly. It's just whatever his mind flits to in the moment. A few neuron misfirings, and he might have answered in the complete opposite direction.
I think because of me, he's not going to do that.
Do you trust him? Do you trust him?
I don't trust you. I don't trust a lot of people. I don't trust you. Look at you. You come in all shooting for bear. You're so happy to do the interview.
I am
and
happy.
Then you start hitting me with fake questions. You start telling me that a guy whose hand is covered with a tattoo.
He ain't lying, man. He really thinks those MS Paint numbers and letters were on the hand. And if you were Trump and you actually thought that, by the way, it would make sense for you to be this indignant and keep bringing it up because it's such an obvious slam dunk.
Doesn't have the tattoo, you know. All right. I mean, you're being dishonest.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
They should have pulled out the picture, by the way, and I think this interview is a bitch for not doing so. Like, he should have had pictures at the ready of Abrego Kilmar Garcia's hands in the video of him speaking with the is it Michigan Senator? Not Michigan, it was Wyoming, Wisconsin. I think it was Wisconsin.
I don't trust a lot of people, but I do think this. I think that let's say he respects me.
Maryland,
I believe
somewhere up
me,
there.
He's not
I don't know.
Take over the whole, but his decision, his choice would be to take over all of Ukraine. Okay. It's a war that never should have happened. It did happen because of incompetent people.
Last question on this.
But it never should have happened.
If there is no peace deal, will the U.S. cut off military aid to Ukraine?
I don't want to tell you that. I'm not going to tell you whether or not I would or not. I want to leave that as a big fat secret because I don't want to ruin a negotiation. But
I'd be worried.
I will tell you, I was not happy when I saw Putin shooting missiles into a few towns and cities. And that was not something that I liked seeing, and I thought it was inappropriate. But I think the whole war is inappropriate. Okay. Again, It's a war that shouldn't have happened. This is a war that if the election weren't rigged, and it was totally rigged, the 2020 election, if it weren't rigged, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have had the embarrassment of Afghanistan. You wouldn't have October 7th with Israel. You wouldn't have had any of the problems that you have right now.
I want to ask one question.
You wouldn't have had inflation either.
All right. I want to ask one question about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. There's a lot of turmoil at the Pentagon right now. There's the signal chat with his wife on it where he's discussing that attack in Yemen. There's another signal chat discussing the attack on Yemen. There's a reporter accidentally involved. You said the other day that you had a talk with the secretary. Did you take him to the woodshed?
I had a talk with him, and whatever I said, I probably wouldn't be inclined to tell you. But we had a good talk. He's a talented guy. He's young. He's smart, highly educated.
So when Trump says the election was rigged, he truly believes so? 100%. Absolutely he does. Absolutely 100% he does. Absolutely, yeah.
And I think he's going to be a very good hopefully a great defense secretary, but he'll be a very good defense secretary.
You have 100% confidence in
I don't have 100% confidence in anything. Okay, anything. Do I have 100%? It's a stupid question. Look,
it's a pretty important position.
No. You don't have 100%. Only a liar would say I have 100% confidence. I don't have 100% confidence that we're going to finish this interview.
We will.
Let's go.
Coming up, President Trump on Elon Musk and Doge.
Did Doge go too far, too fast, too recklessly?
It is so fucked up that the interviewer won't bring up the photos of Kilmar Garcia's knuckles even after Trump brought it up continuously over and over again. Like, why? Like, come on, they're not going to shoot you in the Oval Office. Like, come on.
The first 100
Yeah, he's trying to spare Trump the
continues.
embarrassment, which is pathetic.
Elon Musk and Doge. Everyone knows that there's wasteful government spending. It's really important. But the cuts have had some serious consequences. There have been cuts to foreign aid programs that save lives and keep people alive overseas. There's been research at the National Institutes of Health on cancer, on Alzheimer's, that has had to be stopped. And the question I think people have is, did Doge go too far, too fast, too recklessly?
No, I think Doge has been, saved $150 billion. We saved, that's a lot of money. There's also a lot of things right now under investigation, which is going to increase that amount by a lot.
Did you know for the upcoming quarter, the amount the federal government's going to have to borrow has increased by like 260%? We're actually going to debt faster than ever before in history right now. Quarter debt borrowing estimate. During the April to June 2025 quarter, the Treasury expects to borrow $514 billion in privately held net marketable debt, assuming an end of June cash balance of $850 billion. The borrowing estimate is $391 billion higher than announced in February 2025. It's going great. Projected lower net cash flows. Lower beginning of quarter cash balance. It's going good.
Tremendous amount of money. There were some things where, when I heard about them, I put them back, as you know. There are things that I'm considering right now putting back, but overall we've saved hundreds of billions of dollars.
Well, the original promise was $2 trillion, went to $1 trillion, now to $150 billion, and heading south.
You don't know what it's going to be because we have things that are at a very high level that are being looked at right now. We also found tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse, as you know. We found a lot of fraud. There was a lot of fraud. Fraudulent things were taking place, and we ended that, and those people are going to be suffering because of it.
A legal note, fraud is a crime. There have been no referrals to the Justice Department on any of
Well, you
these.
don't know that, do you? How do you know that?
Have there been referrals to the? Are there criminal
How would you
referrals?
know that there were no referrals? I think there were referrals.
They generally are. There's been no investigation from the.
We would know if there were referrals. The reason Trump is saying this is because no doubt Pam Bondi and other people in his cabinet have privately told him, oh yeah, we found lots and lots of fraudsters and we're taking care of them. They haven't told Trump any of the details, of course, because they've found no fraud. There's nothing to do, really. But they've told him they're taking care of it, so he can only sort of opaquely refer to the fact that it's being taken care of.
How do you know that?
I'm asking you, sir.
No, you're not asking me. You made a statement. You're not
Now I'm
asking
asking you.
That was a statement that you made. There have
I'm
been.
asking you.
Have there been? Yes, there have.
So there have been referrals for fraud from the
Of course
workers'
there have been. Take a look at some of these things that took place. Billions of dollars we give it to people for no reason whatsoever. Of course there have been.
I want to bring up what is truly to a lot of people, one of the biggest achievements of your first term. That is Operation Warp Speed. You got that COVID vaccine up and going and distributed, and a lot of people took it, and a lot of people feel their lives have been saved by it. Now we have this measles outbreak, biggest in a decade in Texas, and it's because people aren't getting their children vaccinated. Do you recommend to parents that they get their children vaccinated for measles?
Well, I recommend the governors to make the decisions. You have a very talented governor of Texas, and he's making decisions, and those decisions are going to be made rapidly.
Did you hear that earlier today, Greg Abbott called a mayor of one of his Texan towns anti-Semitic for suggesting that money that was being used by the town to fund Israel instead went towards the town? That was pretty funny.
This is a very much different thing than COVID in terms of rapidity and speed and other things. Measles have been with us a long time, and I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying that the governors are making the decision. It's a federalist decision.
The president is our leader in so many ways, and your voice counts so much. And you can't tell moms and dads, it's a good thing to get a measles vaccine.
Do I recommend it? Yes, I do.
Okay.
I recommend it, yeah.
Got it. That was
do I
my
mandate
question.
it? No.
No, I didn't.
But I do recommend it, yes.
Good. Do you think you're...
And I have recommended it.
Do you think
Abbott's a good example of how Republicans are way more evil than Trump. Yeah, for sure. How long has Greg Abbott been operating within the Republican Party? Since, like, it's 2015, I think, since he was governor. But he's been in the Republican Party for way longer than that. 30 years? Yeah. And Greg Abbott is easily more evil than Trump, like, effortlessly. Like monstrous difference between the two. Trump's just a fucking idiot. So yeah, no, yeah, it's important to understand, again, like, we need a reconstructive cultural upheaval. We need a cultural revolution, the likes of which, you know, have never been seen before. We need to fix the country, man. Because this is really bad.
Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has a history of, at the very least, vaccine skepticism. Do you think Kennedy recommends the measles vaccine?
He did. He recommended it. Yeah, he did.
He's satisfied with his response on
recommended that they go out and get the vaccine.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean when you say cultural revolution? I think that, like, the liberal dream of the free marketplace of ideas has turned out to be a ludicrous farce, and it's obvious if you look at it for even 10 seconds. All discourse is controlled by corporate media and by corporate masters, you know, oligarchs. Whether it be the news that's disseminated from the top down, the extent to which news organizations are able to extract information from the administration, the fact that basically every local news company is owned by the same fucking, like, single company. The idea that we're getting our information in a free and neutral environment is obviously false. It's also pathetically easy to shift priorities to boost algorithms on social media. You have any idea how many neo-Nazi accounts on Twitter are run by Indians? Because the blue check pay mark that you get for engagement, or the blue check paychecks that you get for engagement, are a lot of money in India. Do you have any idea how much of it is, like, grifters who are just making, like, $18 a day? But for them, that's huge. So they'll just, like, Nazi post nonstop. It doesn't matter whether or not they believe it. There's also, like, 1.4 billion Indians, so it doesn't, like, it can be a tiny percentage of their population. Yeah, it's the modern day equivalent of Brazilians making their money by farming gold on RuneScape, or buying WoW tokens or whatever, and then selling them to the, you know, to the highest bidder. Except this has political consequences. The idea of, like, well, we can just let the best ideas reside, like the best ideas will flow to the top, just not true. It's factually false. You're an idiot if you believe it. Like, you have the mind of a child if you believe that. We need to acknowledge that some ideas are good and some ideas are bad. And that belief needs to be upheld with authority. The whole reason we're in this mess right now is because Democrats shrugged and assumed like, hey, you know, in spite of the monstrous amount of corporate propaganda, money in politics, the fact that social media companies are literally like directly owned by a small group of people, I'm sure that people will like reject Trump's idiotic ideas and settle with, you know, a boring, banal, neoliberal, do-nothing candidate like Hillary Clinton, because that's the sensible choice. And between Trump and Hillary Clinton, yeah, Hillary Clinton was the sensible choice. Not exactly the best of two, you know, not the best choice overall, of course, but of the two choices, sure. But it didn't matter, obviously. Good ideas need to be upheld with authority. And that's not anti-democracy, that's pro-democracy. What kind of democracy do you have if you allow anti-democratic ideas to be spread by foreign agents, people who are just looking to make a buck but have no interest in the politics themselves, and by oligarchs who would benefit from an authoritarian government because they'd be able to directly collaborate and collude with the government, which is exactly what's happening now. Ridiculous. A cultural revolution needs to be a top-down purge from government of these ideals. We're talking about civilizationally destructive things here. As far as I'm concerned, there are some things that should just prevent you from being able to hold power, maybe even own businesses. You're anti-climate change? You don't think climate change is real? Sorry, I value the continued existence of the human species above your ability to be wrong. In all likelihood, not even you being wrong, but you making more money by convincing other people of a position you know is wrong, which is what the oil companies were doing for decades. They all knew they were lying. It's not like it was a sincerely held belief. Like we are literally talking about preserving the species here, not just the country, but even if it was just the country. None of these beliefs are held sincerely. Go to social media right now, find a lefty poster, anyone. Who are you going to find? Probably some college student, you know, or just someone who believes in lefty ideas. Now find a righty poster. Who are they? They are, without exception, or very few exceptions, a schizophrenic, a foreigner making money off of the USD Twitter blue check payouts, a shameless grifter who has posted for years now and has promoted contradictory ideas. They don't believe in anything, or a pedophile advocate, not just a pedophile, but an advocate for pedophilia, somebody who makes arguments in favor of them. Like, what are you supposed to make of this? I refuse to believe, like, oh, you know, well, it's dangerous to suggest that, like, authority should be, you know, like, the power of the state should be used to reaffirm the validity of some ideas over others. It's dangerous not to, motherfucker. And by the way, the bad guys won. You got exactly what you wished for. Your dickless, what if the best way of solving society is to do nothing bullshit led to the bad guys winning. It needs to be socially intolerable. I'm just talking at like levels of government, by the way, because I don't think you should be able to like you shouldn't be able to be in office if you use your office for graft and corruption and vice. You take bribes, right? Most people agree on this, even though we're not exercising that legal distinction right now. Most people would agree if you're in office and you're taking bribes, that should be something that removes you from office. Why can you be in office and kill thousands of people by revoking, by cutting Medicaid so that you can save marginal amounts of money for the insurance companies that are forced to, or the healthcare companies that are forced to pay out? We have to be a little bit more sensible than this. And it needs to be socially intolerable to agree with these people, okay? I think we're doing better about that right now because as far as I can tell, most liberals find most Trump supporters completely, like, socially intolerable, which is true because they are, you know. But it needs to go further than that. Like, being an open neo-Nazi has earned you a lot of public condemnation for a long time. Why the fuck did that stop? Like, oh, sure, if you're a skinhead and you have a swastika on your forehead, maybe that gets you the broad condemnation. Maybe that gets you, like, the widespread denunciation. But, like, what about, you know, any of the other shit? Like, the fact that, like, 40% of the country thinks that it's okay to deport anyone without due process. I don't know. We need to gatekeep, gaslight, and girl boss a lot harder. You understand? Yes, sir. Don't be an individualist. You can be an individualist if you want, but understand that right now your individual rights and your individual quality of life are being destroyed by people who use the guise of individualism as a way of handing all the power in the world to 5 of the wealthiest men on the planet. It was always free speech this and free marketplace of ideas that. Now all the people who were pro-free marketplace of ideas back in 2017 today are arguing for the no trials deportations for American citizens to a foreign country's concentration camp. They think it's based, and they think you're triggered and owned for disagreeing with it. They don't believe in anything. All right.
Still ahead.
I'm asking the justification for going after people you don't like.
Oh, I'm sure that'll go well.
The first 100 days continues.
I want to talk a little bit about presidential power, the powers that you have in the presidency temporarily that the American people have given you, right? You've revoked a lot of people's security clearances. You've revoked people's security details who are still threatened, with death threats. You've gone after law firms because they've employed people you don't like, or they have represented people you don't like.
Well, they obviously agreed because they paid me a lot of money.
Well, the reason they agreed is because you were threatening to destroy their business with your executive order that said you can't represent clients for the federal government. That's their bread and butter.
Boys. These are the biggest, most powerful lawyers. These are not people.
You got a lot of leverage
easily intimidated.
As president, you've got all the cards.
They paid hundreds of millions of dollars because they felt, I guess, they probably felt they did something wrong.
It was for survival, sir.
No, it isn't.
You're crushing their business.
These firms are very powerful firms, and there's 15 of them. And these are firms that probably, look, you have to ask them.
This is where the free marketplace of ideas should decide got us. The president openly bragging about threatening prominent law firms that have previously crossed him with executive orders that would shut down their ability to do business unless they did pro bono work for him. Hundreds of millions of dollars, billions in total, of free labor from the best lawyers in the world, slaves to the president, as a punishment for them having ruled against him or fought against him before when he broke the law previously.
In fact, this is a separate story. You have to ask them, why did you all pay Trump hundreds of millions of dollars in services, etc.? Why did you do that? I don't know.
You don't think that
we had a clause in the thing that, while we admit no wrongdoing, but it's like one of those things. And now I'm friendly with those firms, but it's these are the most powerful firms in the world, and they just signed whatever I put in front of them. I've never seen anything like it. I'm actually surprised myself in a certain way, but they obviously felt they probably did something wrong. I guess that's why they signed.
Jesus fucking Christ! I didn't sign an executive order blackmailing them and bullying them into working for me for free. I guess they just had a guilty conscience from all the times they wronged me, so they just decided to do it themselves.
I guess the question out of that is the concern that people have. Are you using your powers as president to get personal revenge?
No, I'll tell you what you're really not asking, and you should be asking. There has never been a president in this country, in the history, that was persecuted like I was persecuted by really crooked people, dishonest, horrible people, and it's been proven. So when you say I'm treating people rough, I'm not treating people rough. I was treated worse than any president in the history of our country. And people figured, well, maybe that's it. Finally, we got, he's leaving town. There goes the helicopter. And then I came back. And I came back because I have tremendous support. When you win an election like I won it, and you will admit I won all 7 swing states, I won the popular vote, I won 2,750 districts compared to 500 districts. That's why the map is all red. And those people feel that I was treated unfairly.
But does that give you the right to go after your political opponents with the powers of this office?
I'm going after, all I'm doing, hey, Biden did something to me And I did something to Biden. And you know why I did it? Because he's grossly incompetent. That's not a man that should be allowed to, be looking at things that are very confidential.
But what about,
because
71
here's a
people
man that used an auto pen to sign very important documents. Now, who really is, do you think he knew that they were using an auto pen? I mean, he used an auto pen.
Trump has used an auto pen for an enormous number of documents that he signed. Everyone does. Otherwise, their frail little old person hands would break.
To sign very, very important documents. And so those are really the questions you should be asking. What do you think of the auto pen? Who wielded the auto pen? Because whoever that person was, think of it, whoever the person that wielded the auto pen, he was really the president of the United States. Because I don't think that Biden knew anything about it.
Fair enough. But you are the president.
I think they talked about this during the, yeah, here we go. Here's J.D. Vance trying to get on Grandpa's will during today's presidential cabinet meeting.
I think what it shows to me is that the president, and you sit in the Oval Office and you see these portraits of presidents past, and let's be honest, most of them have been placeholders. They've been people who have allowed their staff to sign executive orders with an auto pen instead of men of action. And the reason the media attacks this administration as chaotic is because the president is solving the problems the American people set about to solve. He's actually doing the things that
Trump's used the auto pen just as much as everyone else. I literally think he just got this talking point from the people around him. Again, he did in his first term, he does now.
And I'm asking the justification for going after people you don't like.
No. People that I think are dishonest. It's not that I don't even know most of them. They're people that I think are dishonest.
These people made you angry.
No, it's not anger. These are people that I think are very dishonest. I don't think they're worthy of being able to go into top secret information. I think that's fine. And Biden did that with many of our people. But when you look at it, these are people that I don't think are worthy. That's my decision. It's not a question of anger.
Okay. I understand you just had a phone call with the new Canadian premier, and they just had this election.
Yeah.
You were a big issue in it. And Canadians, many of them, are really angry, furious about your talk about we're going to take over Canada, is going to become the 51st state. And it kind of is of a piece. A lot of travel is down.
This interviewer gets under his skin really well. I don't think so. I just think that anyone talking to Trump in any context that isn't constantly glazing him is going to get under his skin because he's a delusional, megalomaniacal narcissist. I think this interviewer is a huge pussy. Trump just has famously thin skin. You know, I'm again, but like I've gotten used to interviewers never actually doing anything when given the opportunity to talk to Trump. So,
United States from around the world, it feels like there's been reputational damage.
The country's doing great. Well, prices are down,
not the tourism.
Gasoline's down, energy's down, tourism is going to be way up. Wait till you see the numbers. The tourism is way up.
Not now.
Now Canada, tourism's doing very well. We're doing very
again, it doesn't know what's going on. He has no idea.
Very well. We're doing very well. Wait till you see the real numbers come out in 6 months from now. Wait till you see the numbers.
But do you think, I'm going to ask you, if I may, do you think the reputation of the United States has gone down under your presidency?
No, I think it's gone way up, and I think we're a respected country again. We were laughed at all over the world. We had a president that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, couldn't walk across a stage without falling.
Did you see those clips where Trump in the Vatican walked by all the other world leaders and it was dead silent, and then when Zelensky came in, everyone was clapping? That was pretty funny.
We had a president that was grossly incompetent. You knew it, I knew it, and everybody knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news.
All right. Thank you.
And by the way, ABC is one of the worst. I have to be honest with you.
Thank you for the opinion, but more importantly, thank you for having us here. I have one more
question. I know it's crazy to remember this, by the way, but it's important to understand that for a long time, journalists were regarded as people who were fearless, you know? Like journalists were like people who spoke truth to power. So the fact that a president who is wrong on literally everything and is also incredibly thin-skinned and could probably be made to like crash the fuck out very easily is just sitting here and insulting this guy, and he's just taking it, not doing anything. It's fucking embarrassing. And honest, like, again, this is more spineless than any media coverage from any other country we've looked at. Remember the Canadian, the CBC broadcasters we were looking at the other day when Mark Carney won, any one of them, if sitting in a room with Trump, would turn into a screaming match instantly. Any of the people on DW, screaming match instantly. France 4, screaming match instantly. We are uniquely weak. We're a sick country, and it's because this guy ultimately serves the same goddamn master as Trump.
It's a big one. It's a question that a lot of people have out there. What do you say to people who are concerned you are seizing too much power and becoming an authoritarian president like we haven't had before?
No, I would hate them to think that. I'm doing one thing. I'm making America great again. We have a country that was failing. We have a country that was left out all over the world. We had a leader that was grossly incompetent. He should have never been there. The election was rigged. He should have never been there. Our country suffered greatly, and now our country's coming back like nobody can believe. I have editorials just today where they're saying they've never seen anything like it. They love it. Our country's coming back, and we're respected again.
Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you, Terry, very much.
Once again, we want to thank President Trump.
That was great. Phenomenal stuff, really. The reporter doesn't even have the balls to tell him the election wasn't rigged. It's genuinely pathetic. Again, like the reputation of, or I guess I should say, like the esteem, the credibility, the clout of journalists, just fucking gone. France 4. Did I say France 4? France 24 was what I was thinking of. Still running with the rigged narrative. It's not a narrative to him. He believes it. How did the U.S. press cuck themselves this way? Well, again, they're all owned by like 5 media companies, right? ABC is owned by Disney. There's ABC, NBC, CBS, obviously Fox, like a bunch of CBS is owned by Paramount. Okay, yeah, like literally, I don't remember the whole fucking chain, but it goes up to like 5 companies, and all those the people who run those companies, we're talking about wealthy boards of directors, very, very wealthy people, and all of them are just looking to ride the wave. When the line goes up, their shares are worth more. They're happy. The number is bigger, and that's pretty much it. They hate you and they hate life.